Welcome back, everybody, to another Cats Coverage Basketball podcast. Yeah, as you all noticed, Michael's not here. Tim had to pick up on the routine clap. Michael always gives us those claps as we come into here. And Michael said, I think he said he's in Michigan. He's back home in Michigan right now at the Michigan State game. I didn't know they had a game, but as you all know who've listened to this, Michael's not a Kentucky fan. He's a Michigan State fan. He's from Michigan, so he's going there to root on his team. And, he's a big advocate for keeping Michigan State in the Champions Classic, but he might be the only one. But while he's not here, we can bash up on him a little bit. We'll have him back next week. But thankfully, we got Tim back on here as always, Tim producer. And then we've got Tanin. He was last minute. I think under an hour notice. I said, hey, man, can we get you on the podcast tonight? He's like, yep, I'm in. Tanin just started our women's basketball podcast. And so he's going to be kind of covering the women's basketball for us this year, going to the games. And so we'll promote that towards the end of the podcast, but please keep up with his stuff as well. And Tanin, while you're on here, let me just go ahead and let you introduce yourself and tell fans who haven't got to see you yet.
Yeah, my name is Tanin Smith. I've been doing Kentucky internet stuff for a while now, and Trace, you reached out to me before the season started and asked me if I wanted to come on and kind of cover UK women's basketball. And obviously with all the new stuff going on with that program, it was a really exciting opportunity. So I've had a blast going to the games and providing as much coverage for the women's team for the website and everything that I can. And yeah, we started that podcast. I'm having fun with it so far, hoping to get some more episodes out soon. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And as you all know, Tim makes all this work. Tim keeps it all. Y'all see the Kentucky, the background behind here, the floor picture he took, and we streamed these, and it gets all edited, all nice, all to Tim. Give a good shout out to Tim. Tim, me and you both were at that game on Saturday, 93-85, another Kentucky win. I didn't think it was in jeopardy at all, but it did get a little too close at the end. And let's kind of go through that. When you were sitting there at the beginning of the game, is Lamont Butler about to walk out? We hadn't really heard anything. Game time decision. Lamont Butler walks out. He's the second one to the court right behind Trent Noah out there just shortly after we saw Peyton Siva and the student section all jawing with each other. But let's get into it, Tim. How was, let's start with the pregame. We're waiting on Lamont Butler, and he walks out. Oh, he's playing today. And then he goes out there and scores 33 points, 10 for 10 shooting, 6 for 6 on the three-point line. I think he was like 7 for 12 at the free throw line. Near perfect if you don't – actually was perfect if you don't count those free throws. A historic performance on a game that we didn't even know he was going to play in. Tim, what was that arena like? You were there as well.
Yeah, it was crazy because, before the game, we're sitting there like, oh, let's go to the other side, and get ready to see if Lamont comes out because a lot of students were in there already. It was getting crowded. We knew the crowd was going to erupt if he came out, and sure enough, he strutted out there, and the crowd, the fans that were there, they were cheering for him and everything. So, that's a game that you don't expect him to have. He's kind of the anchor of this team, the leader, the ball handler, the play creator, and everything. But you don't expect him to go out there and give you buckets like that. No. We've always kind of speculated like it's gonna be Jackson Robinson, who's your go get a bucket type of guy. But that was Lamont Butler out there. He went out there and showed that he can be that guy too at times. So. I think we learned a little bit more about Lamont that day. What was it? He was like, he had 7 attempted 3-pointers, 7. I think it was 7 made 3-pointers
against Louisville.
On the season before Louisville, he goes into Louisville and hits 6 in one game. That's just insane. I can't believe it, and hopefully it's something that he keeps rolling. And it was great to see.
Tanin, I'm going to pass it to you in just a second, but I have to say, Tim, you got to help, you got to back me up on this, so no one's going to believe me if you don't. You and Michael were here for it. After that Clemson game, I was saying that Lamont Butler is the most important player on this team. I know Jackson Robinson probably needs to be, but I was saying Lamont Butler is the most important. If we want to go as far as we want to, we've got to have him in that fold. And I know it's just one game and it's Louisville who you're going to win against likely anyways, but we saw how great he can be. And he's just been ramping up since that Clemson, at the Clemson game, he was ramping up. We were seeing, and then we've not had him these last 2 games. We saw a big weakness in the Colgate game, gave up a 17-point lead. He's phenomenal for us. Tanin, what was your thoughts on that Louisville win on Saturday?
Yeah, it was awesome. I hate giving props to Louisville, but with how shorthanded they were, the fact that they even kept it close was a surprise to me, especially, if you'd have told me we would have Lamont for this game, going in, I'd be like, okay, well, we're going to blow him out of the water. And Lamont having the game he had was just extremely unexpected. He's of all the shooters on this team, he's the last guy you would expect to go 6 for 6 from three and not miss a shot the whole game. I mean, it was incredible. It's one of the better point guard performances we've seen at Kentucky in the last, over a decade. And that battle between him and Chucky Hepburn was just a ton of fun to watch. Two similar point guards going at it and just getting buckets back and forth. So, I mean, it was a ton of fun. I feel like Pat Kelsey's going to do a better job than the last two Louisville coaches at making the rivalry feel like a rivalry. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a ton of fun.
Can we talk about Pat Kelsey for just a second? And listen, y'all can feel free to give your thoughts. I'm going to say this one time, and I'll never say it again. So anybody that wants to clip this and hold it against me as time goes on, this is the only time I'm going to say it. And I hate to say it as much as you hate to listen to it, but I kind of like the guy. I kind of do.
And I've said it before. I love him. I love him. He's awesome. I mean, like I was telling you, Trace, like if you went and had dinner with this guy, not knowing he's a Louisville coach or anything, like 10 out of 10 people would love this guy. I mean, I think people really only hate him because he's the Louisville coach. He's a great guy, great coach. He's an excellent motivator. Yeah, he's an awesome dude.
I mean, he said this week, Mark Pope's going to be my pick for National Coach of the Year. This is Kentucky Louisville. You don't say that. It feels so wrong. Like, this feels so wrong. I feel like I'm cheating on a girlfriend I don't have at the moment. It just feels like it feels so wrong. And so I'm begging one of them to slip up and say something, and we just start that spark. And it's not going to be Mark Pope. So, like, come on, Pat Kelsey, you got to quit calling our coach of the year. Like, hopefully next year there's some words said between. I'm not betting on it because they're both too nice of guys, but so hopefully something happens. We still recruit or something, and Kelsey comments on it, and then but then even if it got to that point, Kelsey might have a bad comment, but Mark Pope's not going to entertain that. Like, even if you have in that world of Pat Kelsey giving that fire, Mark Pope's going to be over here with the fire, same as you're putting it out. So, I don't know how we're ever going to get to that point of truly hating. I guess you're just going to have the fans fulfill that because the coaches aren't. It's a different way of, it's a different way of viewing it. I mean, anyways, listen to him in that post-game press conference. Like you said, if he didn't have Louisville on his chest, I would be a really, really big fan of Pat Kelsey. He seems really smart. He seems like he knows the game really well. He knew Lamont Butler very well. He said that he had all the great things to say about him, and his whole opening statement was surrounding him. And he asked Tony Neely, he's like, he doesn't have another year of eligibility left, does he? And he's like, no, he's a senior. He's like, good, because all this good stuff I'm saying, it's not like I'm trying to prep him to get him from the portal next year.
As if. Yeah,
and he dealt with him at San Diego State and just had the great things to say about it. But I said I like Pat Kelsey. Do y'all have Timmy, I know you say you like him. Tanin, how do you feel about Pat Kelsey?
Yeah, I like him too. And I like the dynamic of the two coaches being really nice and respectful to each other, and then the fans. And then we saw on the court, it kind of boiled over to the players where they took the rivalry seriously. They let it get heated. They let it get physical. I think it's a good thing for the fans to hate each other, the players to be super, into the rivalry when they're on the court, and then for the two coaches to be, respectful to each other. And I mean, you can tell both Mark Pope and Pat Kelsey are just great people. And so I kind of like that dynamic. It's very refreshing from Calipari and Pitino, who just didn't like each other, and you could tell. It was very blatantly obvious they didn't like each other. So I kind of like this change of pace where the coaches are cool with each other, the fans despise each other, and the players were getting into it on the court. So I think that's how the rivalry should be.
I guess we kind of dealt with it last year with Cal and Kenny Payne, but it was more of just like coach speak. Like, I remember Kenny and Payne, they had, won 4 games a year before, and then they had barely won a couple games the second year, and Cal was just like, he's going to get that program rolling, something I'm paraphrasing a little bit, and no one's like, no, he's not. So we kind of had it a little bit, but this year is extra positive. So it's just really, really weird. But Tim, as you were saying, there's 21,000 people, over 21,000 people in Rupp Arena. There wasn't an open seat in that place. It finally felt good because it felt like Louisville finally had a pulse for once, year after year for a long time. And so we just whack up on them. I remember going at Louisville last year and just dominating at their home place. There were more Kentucky fans there than Louisville fans. And just, it really does feel good that Louisville had a pulse for once and that it was somewhat competitive. The last few minutes, I told Tim before we got on here, we're a little too close than I wanted before Otega Owe went and closed it out for us. But 21,000 people in there, Tim, not an open seat from my view. What about yours?
No, not at all. It was loud, and I mean, it was mostly Kentucky fans. There were, you could see the Louisville fans, of course, but whenever Kentucky fans up for the free throw and it's all quiet, you just hear a few little screams across the arena from the Louisville fans kind of scattered around. But yeah, I mean, the Kentucky fans didn't really allow the Louisville fans to get those tickets and really fill in those seats.
Yeah. And Tanin, as you mentioned earlier, Louisville had, I think, 7 scholarship players available. They were really hurt. I mean, if we're going to be fair, we got to give them a little credit for making it competitive with a shortened roster. So it felt good for it to have that at one point. But you come out with the win. I thought it was also cool that Mark Pope, as a Mark Pope fashion, when they wanted the players to celebrate at the end of the game, he said, wait a second before you do all your L's down stuff, and let all the little players walk off. Then he said, go nuts, and went over and they all went L's down all over the place. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but I understand why he did that. He's got at least two former players on that Louisville roster. He don't want them to, he don't want to provoke another chest to chest type of deal. What'd you all think about the in the game Brandon Garrison situation? To be fair, the play was out on the out of bounds line, and then he kind of tripped over the guy. As college players with testosterone, you want to kind of, someone's right here, get your shoulder on them. I think it wasn't nothing. Both of the coaches said it wasn't a big deal, but how did you all feel about that scuffle in the late second half?
I mean, I feel like rewatching it, I mean, Garrison was, shoved towards the bench, but it does kind of look like he may have gotten away with a bit of a stomp, maybe. No telling if he did. It could have been falling and just put his foot down and kind of brace himself, or he may have fully had done that. But Owe, it kind of seemed like Owe was kind of wanting it to become something more than it did, just in his post game interview and everything. And he's just kind of saying like it really kind of feeds into that rivalry and everything. But I mean, it was, I guess, entertaining to see. I always find it funny to just see Mark Pope sprinting across the court to try to break it up. And there was one point where he almost kind of had Pat Kelsey in a little bit of a headlock too. So, I mean, that's always pretty funny to see. It makes you want to see some more of those things just to see him get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I love stuff like that during a rivalry game. We've seen it with Kentucky football and the big brawl we had a few years ago, and we were throwing trash cans at each other. And during this game, I mean, Brandon Garrison and Noah Waterman were going at it all game, and just slapping each other's hands off and talking. And I feel like it was kind of boiled over with Garrison a little bit, and he's over there, right next to their bench, and he's standing over Rain Smith, and Javon Hadley comes up behind him and pushes him forward off of Rain and into the bench, and then he's surrounded by 8 people. And I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the clip of Garrison kind of giving Connie Ruths a little smack and everything. It's just like. And then you get, all the other players, all of our players coming over there, Mark Pope coming in there and pulling guys out. And, I love stuff like that, especially during a rivalry game. And that's happened multiple times now with this Pope team, where, I mean, it happened with the Georgia State stuff. You knock one of our guys down and you play dirty, and we're going to come over there and we're going to stand up for him. And I mean, I feel like we honestly didn't really see that much in the Cal era, and we've already seen it twice in this young season. So I love stuff like that. I think it's awesome, and it shows that these guys, care about each other and are going to stand up for each other.
Yeah. What about those letters that the former players wrote to the team this week ahead of the game? I mean, talk about understanding the moment, the rivalry. I'm sure people at Kentucky were asking them to get that done. That's great content to get prepped up. But all around, great job from every side. I mean, talk about understanding the moment. It's, as we all know, all 3 of us grew up in this state. It's not just a game. And a lot of the national media people will understand that as well. They know it's a big rivalry, but just like the Louisville player, I think it was Terrence Edwards, one of them said this week, some of us committed to Louisville to play in that Kentucky game, which is a bold statement. Why would you ever give Kentucky fans that bait? If I was the guy on the Louisville side, I'd be like, shut up, don't give them that. But they did, and and Mark Pope's done a great job of telling these guys, this is a big deal. Obviously, you don't want to lose the other games, but as we always say, you lose every game, beat Louisville. It's a big deal. I didn't get to really. I watched it once. I went through the letters once. I didn't get to really break it down. I was super busy, but don't y'all love the extra effort just to kind of give fans that hey, the game's this Saturday. Let's go do this. Make you get a little tear-eyed real quickly. These guys understand it. Here we go. Let's play Louisville. A cold Saturday in a sold-out Rep Arena. Kentucky versus Louisville. It just was so much fun, and I really enjoyed that they had those letters that were put out to the former players to the new players.
Yeah, I'm kind of just assuming that was the university's video team that put that together. I mean, their production has been insane this year. They're always great, but this year's just been like a whole other level with their journey videos and the letters and then all the preseason hype and everything. They've been doing a really, really awesome job with their video production for this team.
It's been awesome. I think Pope does a really good job of like making sure the fans know that he understands like where we're coming from and our perspective as fans, and making sure that the players understand that. Again, like I'm not trying to like bash on previous administrations, but I don't think Cal really like fully grasped the tradition of this program the way a guy like Pope can, because he played here, he won a championship here, and he's been a fan since then. And so he understands the way the fan base feels about like this game, and you could tell how much it meant to him. And he was I don't remember the exact context of the clip, but he was talking about how he like woke up in like cold sweats, like thinking about like dreaming about losing this game and stuff. And it's like he wasn't going to let that happen, and he wasn't going to let these players go into this game without understanding. Like none of these guys have been here before. Like not other than Travis Perry and Trent Noah, none of these guys knew what this rivalry actually meant before going into this game. So he made sure each one of these guys knew, and I think it's really cool they got to hear from like older players and stuff to kind of really put into perspective what it means.
Yeah, and it was a unique scenario of it's your both of the coaches' first time in this rivalry. So there wasn't a moment that I thought Kentucky wasn't going to win, but it's good to go out and get it. You're 1-0 versus Louisville as the coach. He's 1-1 as a player. So that's good to get that under your belt. And also. Our guy, Tim, Malachi Moreno, has been on this podcast 2 or 3 times. I went to go watch him on Sunday. I'll talk about that in just a minute, but brought him out at halftime, got out there, just 21,000 people. Yes, can't wait to see you next year. And he just boom. And he looks over at the camera and goes boom again. That guy grew up in Kentucky. He's a Kentucky guy, as you all know, right over in Georgetown. He understands this game. He understands that moment. No hate on any other player that got brought out at any point in time, but like most of them probably wouldn't have thought to do the L's down. They're probably just like 21,000 people. Wow. He's like, this is my moment. I know what these fans they're going to eat this up. Bam. So props to him. I was so happy to see him. Like, of course they're going to do that at some point, but like just to see the whole Big Blue Nation, our guy, he's probably going to win Mr. Basketball this year, be at Kentucky next year. Just kind of like selfishly just really happy to see that. I know that made you probably happy too, Tim, seeing him get brought out in front of all those fans.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a great kid. Kentucky, he, like you're saying, he understands the assignment and wish nothing but success for him. And he's killing it out there. Can't wait to see him in Rep Arena.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk about that. So I went to go watch him on Sunday up in Louisville. Great Crossing they were ranked number 1 in the state versus St. X, number 2 in the state. St. X put on a tournament hosted by Made Hoops. It was the Derby City tip-off, something of that sort.
I think that's right.
At St. X. So, St. X team they were playing at the time, number 2 in the team in the state. It's their home court. I've not been into a lot of high school games. I went to watch a bunch of Reed Shepherd and stuff, but I've not seen a gym packed like that in a while. I mean, I guess now that I'm saying all the Reed Shepherd games were crazy because they all wanted to see him, but like they all wanted to see Malachi Moreno, but also was the number 1, number 2 team in the state. So that was a packed arena on Sunday afternoon. Malachi Moreno finished with 24 points, 20 rebounds. I think he had like 5 or 6 blocks. Did pretty well. St. X is just phenomenal. I mean, St. X, I forget what the final score was. They were up 10-15 the entire time, and it was over from pretty early. So I hated to see that. It's good to finally go see our guy play. I know we're going to go watch a bunch of them this year and then watch him have a great run at Sweet 16 this year. But it was good to go finally see him. I mean, he played great and just against, in my opinion, the best team in the state. So they're going to flip that ranking whenever they come back out. Great Crossing will go to number 2, their first loss of the year. But still good to see our guy go play. So hopefully we can all go get to one of his games soon at Georgetown.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I got to look at their schedule, but we got the New York trip coming up. So any time that's a Kentucky game's not going on, I'm sure I'm good to go to one of those games at Great Crossing.
Yeah. Tanin, have you got to see him yet in high school, Malachi Moreno?
I haven't gotten to see him in person, but I mean, I've watched the highlights from that St. X game, and I mean, just a man amongst the boys out there. It looked like he's just grabbing every board and a lot of putbacks. And I mean, there was one clip where he got a rebound and took it down the court like as the primary ball handler and drove to the basket. So I think he's got a very interesting and intriguing skill set. It'll be. I think he's definitely a Mark Pope type of big man, really good passer. So I definitely would love to get to one of his games as well.
Yeah. And swinging it back to kind of Kentucky Louisville, because we got to hit on that a bunch. It's such a fun day. But I was looking at the stat sheet before we got on here. Another game where 5 players went to double-digit points. I mean, Lamont Butler had his 33, but I've got Otega Owe with 17. He had that impressive closeout performance. I do want to talk about those final minutes of that game. Jackson Robinson had 12. Andrew Carr had 10. And Kobe Brea had 10. Kobe Brea, I've been a couple of pods ago, I was saying, like, in my mind, I mentally already factor in Kobe Brea needs to have 6+ points a game. And he went a couple games where he wasn't doing a whole lot, especially at Gonzaga. They had lockdown defense on Kobe Brea. You could tell that was in their scouting report. But, when you can get a Kobe Brea to contribute 10 points a game, that's great for me. That's what I predicted anyways. And we haven't seen that in a while. And then Otega Owe. So he had 8 points with like 4 minutes to go. I was watching for personal reasons. He had 8 points with like 4 minutes to go. I needed him to have 12. We ain't getting all of that, but he finished with 17 points. He had that 3-pointer over in the corner. It was kind of like, oh, and the whole arena, like I was down there on the right behind the goal at that point. I was passing through to go to the press conference, and the whole place stopped for a second, and then boom, it went in. That was right after he missed that free throw. He missed the free throw, took off on a fast break, and just cocked it back, slammed it. Closeout game. He's closed out a couple of games this year. I'm really impressed with Otega Owe. Is one of the best players on this team, not even a question.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be back for another season. He's definitely boosted his stock quite a bit. He's fun to watch. He's definitely an entertainer out there. I mean, that I gotta say that those like last 2 minutes felt like the longest last 2 minutes, and in a basketball game I think I'd ever witnessed. Me and Mario at KSR were going down to the court to get out there post game, and we're just standing there courtside, and it's just like boom, boom, like 6 minutes passed by. There's still like a minute 12 seconds. It was taking forever out there, but. It's great to see Owe, continuing with his role, and I mean, get him, Butler, and Jackson starting to get more consistent out there. Man, it's gonna be a good team, good team getting rolling.
I don't know if it's a bold take or not, but I think Otega is definitely the best player on the team. Like I see some people say like Jackson has been fine, but like and Lamont obviously had a huge game and he's been kind of the engine, but like Otega is the most consistent game in and game out player on this team. Like every single game you can rely on at least 15 points from him. And like early on in the game when he had like the 4 of his 8 points going into that last stretch were like crazy dunks where he's just like flying through the lane, and just like that one where he posterized the Louisville player. Like this dude is a freak. Like he's just so entertaining and he's so athletic, and he really can just take over a game like that. And obviously Lamont had the big, crazy 33-point game, but for me, Otega's like his stretch, his run there at the end of the game to close it out was just as important. And I always love to see him get going. If he's got an open lane, you better watch out.
Yeah, 1,000%. I don't disagree. Otega Owe is phenomenal, and gratefully on our side of things, where we get to kind of talk to these players after the game, they've all been great. I can't, even if I wanted to, I can't say one thing bad about any of them. But Otega Owe, I'm not sure if anyone else appreciates being at Kentucky more than him. I mean, every single post-game player interview, he talks about, I'm so grateful to be at Kentucky. I mean, we asked him about his trip coming up to Madison Square Garden. He said he's never been. It's going to be surreal. And then he immediately goes, well, it's kind of like being a Kentucky basketball player. It's surreal. I never thought this would be a thing. And every game, I'm grateful to be here. So that guy's really, really like and soaking in the moment. They all are, but I've just got to hear Otega hear it from his mouth plenty of times. And just for the fans that don't get to see that, I hope you all understand this guy loves you all just as much as you probably love him.
Oh yeah, I mean that seems to kind of be the thing with this whole entire team. Kobe Brea loves to be here. Andrew Carr seems like he has nothing bad to say about this school and this team at all. And Jackson, he loves one Mark Pope for sure. He says he basically gives his life to Mark Pope, but loves this university as well. So it's awesome to see that they're not just coming here to, play a season and go on to the NBA. They're actually caring about the school, caring about the tradition, caring about the fans, and, using that as motivation to fuel the fire to try to win go win number 9.
It's that gratitude Mark Pope talks about, man. That he preaches it like 24/7. That gratitude, and you can see it in all these players. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to hear that from every single time. And Tim, I want to swing this in just a second back to the box score. But on that point that you were just saying is, you saw me down there after the game. Mark Pope, as you all know, Mark Pope does his press conference with the media. Then he goes out to the court and does his post-game radio show with all the fans who stay out there. And I walked over to him. He thought he's about done. He went over and started signing autographs and stuff. And I was trying to get a video of him walking off the court. It just would have been cool extra stuff. And, man, Tim saw me over there fighting for my life. I bet I stood for 25 minutes thinking that he was about to be done. Another 25 minutes later, and finally I gave up. I came over, sat back over by Tim. I was like, bro, he's his hands going nuts over there signing autographs and taking pictures with babies and all that stuff. And maybe went on for another 25 minutes after that. I mean, he was there until the last person. And, man, I just felt so bad for me. I was like, I know his jaw hurts from smiling. I know his hand hurts from writing. If you had to guess.
Oh man, there's no telling, but he was still on the court while every single fan was out the building.
I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say 600, 700 people, like literally.
For the post game, for sure. I don't know about autographs, but yeah. I mean, there was a line of people filling that entire side of the baseline, and about 3 rows of those people. He'd sit there, walk down, and sign that first line, and then make his way back, and he got every single person there. And I mean, we're 11 games into the season, and I thought by now he'd be tired of this. And I didn't think not that he'd be tired of it, but staying after for 2 hours, doing a post game, signing all these autographs. Like at some point, I felt like he was going to get tired of it, but he's still smiling through it all. And I think he understands that he's making a lot of people's nights by doing that. And so it's crazy to think I'm by no means am I bashing Cal. I feel like sometimes we sound like the crazy ex that's not over their ex-boyfriend or whatever, but Cal would, you would hear him like sigh or whatever it is whenever he had to go out there and do autographs. And, he would just do a few, not get everybody, and just kind of walk off. So it's just like a complete 180 to go from what Cal was providing these fans to what Mark Pope is doing.
Yeah, and kind of going off what you said, Tim, I think it's also, again, if we're being fair for everybody involved, I think most of our memory of that same scenario is the last few years. And, that's in year 13, 14, 12, 13, 14. You're not winning. Like, it is hard to go out there and give that effort that Mark Pope's in his first year. So, but you are right in what you're saying. But I think people also need to understand that at some point, if we're being real, it's going to die out a little bit. I mean, Mark Pope can't be perfect forever, but he's going to give a good run at it. And he does understand the moment. And the one time that he had to leave early, he bought everybody ice cream. Yeah. But again, for fans, don't expect that in year 4. I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong, but you can't, at some point it dies out. Everybody's going to have his autograph at some point, but let's give him props while he's here and doing it. I did want to swing it back to the box score. I would love to know your all's, like, anything that stuck out to you. I did like that we got back. We hit 11 of 21 at the three-pointer, so we finally got back around that 50% range. Overall, we at the field, I think it was around – let's see, we shot 58% from the field, 52% from the three-point line. We're still awful at free throws. We missed 10 of those. So that's still an issue. Was there anything outside of Lamont Butler and the three-pointers that really, really stuck out to y'all about that box score?
I wish Lamont hit those free throws. He would have had 40.
Yeah.
I mean, he already easily had one of the best performances against Louisville. Wildcats has ever had, but that would have taken up a whole nother notch. But just a few little things that stuck out the most to me. It did feel a lot closer than it should have that entire game, but the fact that Louisville led for 10 seconds to our 39 minutes and 22 seconds is that stands out quite a bit. And then I remember seeing the fast break points. I forget where that was exactly, but we killed them on fast breaks. It's right behind my camera. Yeah, we had 24 to their 4 points on fast break. And I think, we could attribute that to a lot of our defensive reboundings. We had 34 to their 21. And I mean, Louisville was just out there. They kind of sort of play a similar play style. Like, I feel like they have that benchmark on 3-pointers that they try to hit. Because I mean, they shot 39 out there. And Mark Pope says, 30 is usually our benchmark. We try to get it up to 35, but that doesn't seem very feasible sometimes. And they only shot 21 this game. So anyway, I mean, those are a few of the things that stuck out to me the most. And I kind of wish our assist numbers were a little higher. We only had 11.
Yeah.
Usually we're up there a little bit higher.
We did out rebound them 41-31. That's a plus.
Usually, if you score 93 points on 58% from the field and 52% from three, you're blowing a team out. So that's how you know, like, Louisville just played out of their mind for this one. Like, they played, past what they're probably not going to play that well offensively like the rest of the season in terms of shooting. They hit 14 threes. So it's just like, if we hit a few more free throws and if they miss a couple more threes, we win this game by 20. So it's just like, the Louisville fans all over the internet that are like, if we were fully healthy, we would have won this game. And it's just like, I mean, you can't. There's really no way to prove that. But we played really well, especially offensively. Like, we played extremely well, putting 93 points on a Power 5 team. Not many teams are consistently doing that. We've done that, a couple times. But I just think for us to have played that well offensively and still, have only won by 8 is just a testament to Louisville just playing out of their minds.
Yeah, and if we just make our free throws, we left 10 on the board. We're close, borderline double-digit misses on free throws a game. I mean, if you just make your free throws in this, you score 103. 103 on
you win by 20. So.
Exactly. I did notice Ainsley Almanor only had 8 minutes, so his minutes are going down a little bit. Kobe Brea, he did have his 10 points, but he was 2 for 7 at the three, so it wasn't deadly like we were used to with him. Jackson Robinson did not shoot well despite having however many points he had. He still finished with 12, but he went 4 for 11, so 7 misses there from Jackson Robinson. You expect him to be better in most scenarios. I kind of expected this, but I hated to see it. Chucky Hepburn, I'm going to say his name wrong, but he finished with 26 points. We just did nothing to silence that at all. Lamont Butler is not as quick on his feet right now. He's battling that ankle, so you give him some leeway there. But wish we would have limited him a little bit more.
Well, he had TP on him for like 10 minutes, and it seemed like every time TP was on him, he was getting past, he was getting to the rim. So, I mean, Travis is going to be a really good player, but, I mean, it's moments like that when you put him up against a guy like Chucky Hepburn where you're like, okay, he's probably not quite ready for the big-time minutes just yet.
I got to say, man, I wish Kerr was out there for this game. That would have sent this game on a whole nother level. And there's a question that I wanted to ask Mark, but it had wrapped up before I could have. But I ended up asking Jackson Robinson. I was asking him. It was after the Colgate game. I think Mark Pope had said something along the lines of like, Kerr's probably one of the biggest trash talkers around the league, and he's going to be on the bench. Like, heaven help us, something along the lines of that. Yeah. So I brought that up to Jackson. I was like, while you were on the bench, was there anything Kerr said that kind of like stuck out to you or whatever? And he's like, not really, but if there was something, it shouldn't be on camera. So, I mean, I wish Kerr was out there, man.
He would have gotten ejected 100%,
probably
without a doubt.
Yeah, especially during that scuffle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it probably would have been strategic though. Like if it ever got within like 5 or something close. We had Cal pull that sometimes on road games once a year. Like I could have seen a world where like if Kerr Kriisa only got 2 points or something, not really contributed, go out there and hype up this crowd. He would throw his arms up, L's down when he gets thrown off the court. Like that would have been a cool scenario to see. He would have been great for it. But I can only imagine over on the bench, I bet you he let 1 million of them down on his scooter.
Did you see that video of him on his scooter? It's like someone was recording him and he walked up to him and he's like, "Here, hold this." And he handed them his L's down. Like, this dude is crazy, man.
He's that perfect, like, he gets college basketball. He gets shit talking. Like, that guy's great. And he's a great person. He is. And we've got to talk to him a bunch, but he understands those moments. And his clapping and stuff is great to see. So that was fun. So you hate that he couldn't have played, but what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been nice to see, especially, I mean, we kind of got onto the topic of TP, but, man, it's just the past 2 games, he's kind of been getting worked out there. Of course, he is just a freshman, plenty of potential to grow and everything, but, him being forced out there, it wasn't really, forced out there for Colgate necessarily. I mean, that was a good game to get him out there, get some reps, but the Louisville game, he's kind of just put out there to give Lamont a rest or give Robinson a rest from running the ball. And like Tanin was saying, Chucky Hepburn was just lighting him up.
Well, we're just so used to these 5-star NBA player freshmen coming in and playing at point guard. And it's like, that's not going to be the case for every guy, especially if you're not getting these top 5, top 10 recruits every year. There might be a situation next year where, those freshman guards might not be ready for the moment every time. And I think a guy like Travis is definitely much more of a developmental piece. All of the freshmen are more developmental pieces. And that's why it's so great that we have as much, experience as we do at the guard positions, because those guys don't have to be good yet. Like they don't have to be, perfect. So Travis will be fine. He'll come along.
One topic that we haven't talked about, which you could argue we probably should have led with, the big debate online right now, the stand or sit. Yeah, I'm sure y'all have seen that. It's been everywhere. So kind of to lead you in this, I want to get your all's thoughts. And if you want me to go first, so I don't just throw it on you, I will. But I'm sure you've seen the video that those two guys are standing up, as a lot of people do. As I would say, our guy, Matt Sack, started that back in the day. For people who don't know, Matt Sack was the second writer on our site, but after me and Jordan, so I guess that's third. Matt Sack's been with the Cats Coverage Crew since the very beginning. But now he does We're Up to No Good, his own podcast and stuff. And anyways, he's a big supporter. He keeps up with all our stuff. But anyways, there's a picture that went out 5 years ago. He was standing in a full-on jersey. And before Matt went to UK, that was probably 5 or 6 years ago now. But the guy stands and his friends are standing. And of course, people got mad at him. There's different angles, different stories, but like a blue coat went up to get the cop, and the cop came down, and we don't have no audio of what's said, but what people are saying is that the cop told him, we'll take you to jail if you don't sit. And did any of y'all want to go first on this, or do you want me to give you, I don't want to throw it on you. It's a controversial topic. You've got to be right on what you're saying.
I mean, I can come at you with a hot take if you want. I think it's
great.
very situational. Like, I think like during runs and during like high octane moments, I think everybody in the arena should be standing. But I think that there's, if it's just kind of like in a game like Louisville, I feel like it's a little bit more like common. But like if we're playing Colgate or Western Kentucky or something, and there's people behind you sitting, I don't think you should stand the whole game. But maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But I mean, there's going to be people in the arena who don't want to stand. And if the person in front of them is standing the whole game, they can't see. But I think threatening to arrest them and calling the security on them, because, like, if you're that mad about it, just stand up too. Like, if you're that upset about it, like I never would, it's not justified whatsoever to call the cop down there and then the cop is threatening to arrest them for standing up at a sports venue. Like, that's crazy. But I definitely do think there's a time and a place for it. I think in a game like Louisville, I mean, you kind of want the whole arena to be standing most of the time so that you can have that home court advantage and stuff like that. But that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. I kind of find myself in the middle. If I'm just going to be completely honest with y'all, I don't think you need to stand the full 40 minutes of the game. And I can say this because if you've ever sat behind someone who stands the entire game, you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, go experience that for once. It's not fun. But anyways, I think you should, and you come there to support your team and to make if you want Rupp Arena to be a good environment, you've got to stand up at some point. You can't, I would say the opposite. You can't sit down the whole game unless there's physical reasons of why you can't. But I think you should stand up in the big moments. If the team's behind and you're trying to amp it back up, I think when you're up 15 and it's kind of it's not a Louisville game, it's any other opponent, that's not a major deal. Kind of taking a situational thing like Tanin said. Who's behind you? Is it a little kid who can't do nothing about it, even if he stood up? Is it an elderly person? Is it a handicapped person? So I found myself in the middle, leaning more towards the standing. Don't stand up the full 40 minutes. Don't sit down the full 40 minutes. Stand up in the moments that you can make the observation for yourself of when the arena needs you to, in big time moments. But just be considerate of the people around you. I know it's a big deal, and maybe we'll see more at the next game with against Brown. I think it's on New Year's Eve day at 2:00. Tim, what's your kind of take on the stand or sit debate in the Rupp Arena?
I'm right there with you all, and I kind of just had a thought come to my head, so I tried to express it as best as I can. But I think kind of the reason that this is, such a hot topic at the moment was, one, of course, I think it went a little too far, getting the cops involved. Of course, that's going to, spark it up a little bit. But it's always been a thing, the past few years that like the lower bowl of Rep Arena is never standing up. It's always elderly people, even on fast breaks, are never standing up or doing anything. And so, the fans want to get there. They want to stand up the whole game. They want to be that fan that's, trying to get everybody to stand up, get them going and everything, because that's been a topic of conversation the past few years. Just, Rep Arena is not a great home environment, and it's a huge game. So like I'm right there, going on runs, any super high stressful or whatever moments, get up on your feet, get that home crowd advantage or home court advantage going. But if you're up 30 against Wright State, you don't need to be standing the whole game. And like you're saying, Trace, it could be somebody elderly behind you that can't stand. It could be a kid behind you and whatever it may be. And even if you get the person to stand behind you, who's behind that person. So it kind of, trickles on down, and, there's a lot of if, ands, and buts with it. But I do think it is kind of to the point where the university has to, say something about it. Like,
yeah,
I mean, just simply put out that you could stand if you want to stand, or whatever it may be. That might be the best way to go about it.
Yeah, you've just got to kind of find that happy medium. Again, you're there to support your team. I mean, again, you can't sit all 40 minutes if you're physically able to stand. So I don't have a problem with it. You should not have the cops involved. The blue coats are just doing their job. I think it was a little excessive. That's why it's getting all this attention right now. But I don't know. I'm cool with it. Tanin, you have any other last words on that?
I just think it's so melodramatic. Like, it's just, and now it's like a whole talking point across like the BBN and stuff. It's like, why is this even a thing? Like, it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's not as deep as people are acting like it is. But, like you said, it went a little too far, and getting cops involved and stuff for standing up at a sports game. It's just like, what are we doing? What's going on right now?
Yeah, and there is one argument to this that I really rode with a bunch. I really agreed with. Sorry, I can't think. I really agreed with is if you want to not stand up the whole game, I've argued this for a long time. It's not an awful scenario to watch a game from home. Like, we miss a lot of the things that happen at the games from being there. You get replays, you get all this extra info to learn about the teams. You have the best seat. You're right there. You can see everything. Like, it's not a bad scenario as it was 5 or 6 years ago of watching home versus in person. You can still have a great experience watching home. And also that Rupp Arena's gotten a lot better, but for years it's been a bad home environment. Like, don't you want Kentucky to be a good home environment? I mean, Duke's got a great home environment. Now they've got a third the size of the arena. It's, you can hear everything up in the top corner if someone talks. But if you want Rupp Arena to be dominant, I mean, for the people who don't believe me, home court advantage is a real thing. I know a lot of older people don't believe in that stuff, but it is. You have an effect on the game. You can create runs. The players can feel that from you. And also, that's why they want to come play here half the time, because Kentucky consistently has 20,000 people ass in seats or ass not in seats sometimes inside Rupp Arena on a game-by-game basis. I mean, you don't want to come here and hear a pin drop. Like, you come here because you walk out and, like, this is what people come to do for Big Blue Madness, for a practice, for a Georgia State game. Like, it's just, if you want Kentucky basketball to be the top, like they always are in many other categories, this is another thing we've got to figure out a solution to. And I don't think if you're weighing out the option of, okay, well, let's all stand up and be tired versus let's sit on our butts and just clap. Like, I'm leaning the standing up one. I mean, it's for 2 hours, man. If you can't do it, maybe you get a different seat, stay at home. I don't mean that in a mean way, but like, you're there to root your team on. The players need that, especially Kentucky Louisville, man. Like, what are we doing? It's Kentucky Louisville. This is a game that if you're going to stand for one of them, stand for this one.
Yeah, well, I will also say that me and you, Trace, cover a lot of these games. On that occasional situation where we're at home watching the games, I gotta say I enjoy it quite a bit because I'm not paying $30 for parking. I'm not paying $10 to get snacks. I got whatever I want, and I'm at the comfort of my own home, laying on my couch. And as media members, we can't cheer, whereas at home I do get to cheer. I know that's not for that's not the situation for fans, but there's some pros to sitting at home or watching a game, or just going out to hang out with friends at a bar to watch the game, whatever it may be. you can cheer on the team in other ways. It doesn't just have to be at the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, even think about football, Tim. We were out in those elements plenty of this year, freezing. I know it's a different scenario, but like, you're in the comfort of your own home. You got free food, all that good stuff. So,
yeah.
But Tim, I'm trying to think which one I want to do first. Tanin, let's throw this to you. Let's promote your women's basketball podcast again, as we said in the intro of this. As we wrap this up, and then Tim will get on up to our New York trip coming up in 3 days? Oh my gosh! Anyways, Tanin does our women's basketball podcast, and we've been promoting that, and I advise you all to go check it out. We're gonna have some big guests on there soon. We've already got this lined up and planned out because there's so much excitement around the women's basketball program. But Tanin, instead of me trying to tell people, let's let you have it. Promote your own basketball podcast.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, we started a new podcast here on Cats Coverage called Buckets in the Bluegrass, and it's a Kentucky women's basketball podcast. And the first 2 episodes I did by myself and kind of just, covered everything that was going on with the program, talking about everything there is to talk about. We got a couple new commitments, some big blue chip commitments that Kenny Brooks was able to bring in. So talked about those, talked about all the games, recapped that big Louisville win from a couple weeks ago, and definitely need to get more consistent with it. Obviously life's kind of crazy and, don't really have a ton of time all the time, but definitely trying to get more consistent with it. And we want to be like the primary place for people to come to get their, Kentucky women's basketball discussions and coverage and news and recaps and all that type of thing. So the first 2 episodes, were fun to do. And like Trace said, we're going to here soon, we're going to have some different guests on there, and we'll have to see, what all we can get put together there. But I think it's a good podcast, and it's a good place to get all your UK women's basketball news.
And for a long time, women's basketball at Kentucky wasn't covered very heavily at all, especially over the last few years. This program was not – it was a chore, like an absolute chore to watch outside of Ron Howard. Just, it made no sense of why she was, this number 1 pick on this awful team. It's just things work out the way it was. And there's so much excitement, a new coach. His Big Blue Madness intro was baller. He brought all his players with him, and Georgia Moore and Tanin, you were at that Louisville game for the women's basketball. Did that go to? I can't remember if it went to overtime or not, but I know it was a crazy finish. I wasn't there. How was it there in that arena and historic?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, historic Memorial Coliseum this is their first year post renovation, and I went there back when I used to live in Georgia. We came up to Lexington on vacation one time, or to Kentucky on vacation. We came up to Lexington, and it was a few years ago, and went into Memorial, and they had no AC. I mean, it was ancient. It smelled funny. Like it was terrible. And now, like after the renovations, it is an incredible facility. Like it is genuinely so nice in there. And yeah, I mean, every seat in the house was filled for that Louisville game. The crowd was incredible. And just as a whole, the women's basketball program, I encourage, because I know a lot of people haven't been into it because, quite frankly, they were terrible for a good stretch of time. And now it's like I try to tell everybody about the parallels that the women's program is having right now with the men's program, because Mark Pope, Kenny Brooks both took over the program at the same time. They both got their first big wins at around the same time, with Pope beating Duke and Brooks beating Louisville. And so it's like things kind of, both teams only have 1 loss right now. It's honestly kind of scary how similar things are. They both had to create their team from scratch out of the transfer portal, like barely, the women's team had 2 returning players and the men's team had none. So it's like really similar situations. It's kind of eerily similar. And it's awesome. And I encourage anybody who's a Kentucky basketball fan to get behind that women's team, because that program is going to do some great things under Kenny Brooks. So
Buckets in the Bluegrass, but where can people find it? Spotify, where is it all listed at that they can just go right to it and watch it?
It's on the Cats Coverage YouTube channel. That's the primary. That's where you can watch the video version of it. And I've actually been uploading the video version of it to Spotify as well. But if you just want to listen to the audio part of it and you want to, listen to it in the car or shut your phone off or whatever, then Spotify is the place to look for it. Just look up Buckets in the Bluegrass and you should find it.
Heck yeah, a lot of exciting times around women's and men's basketball. Tim, me and you, what's today? So we're recording this I meant to say this at the beginning, I forgot. We're recording this as Tuesday, but it's going to be aired on Thursday. So it's going to be things are a little bit dated. I should have said that at the beginning. But today is Tuesday. That gives us Wednesday, Thursday. I'm flying out Friday. I think you're flying out Thursday.
Flying out Thursday, 6 a.m.
to the Big Apple to New York to watch Kentucky take on Ohio State, North Carolina, and UCLA in Madison Square Garden. I've never been. We found out in our player interviews that a lot of the players haven't been either, which threw me off a little bit. And then Mark Pope said in his radio show the other night, he's only been a couple of times, and he grew up in that area right north of New York for a couple of years, and so he's not been there a whole lot. But he played for the Knicks, and so anyways, exciting trip. We're going to go see Aaron Bradshaw. It seems like he's going to be playing with Ohio State. He's been playing, as Tim, we talked about that the other day. And then just New York around Christmas. I went last April, had an absolute blast, and it's going to be so much fun. And I don't think there's a whole lot of UK media going. So, like, people watching this, keep up with our Cats coverage stuff because we're going to be two people, boots on the ground, getting as much as we can coming from that Ohio State CBS Sports Classic game.
Yeah, I cannot wait. I mean, I've been to New York twice previously, and I stayed there a whole week, and I mean, I barely felt like I dipped my toes in what you can do there. So we're going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, I feel like we're going to barely get anything done there, but man, I can't wait for it. You know, I'm excited to see Bradshaw again. BG Johnson is taking, I think, a leave of absence from Ohio State. You know, he was cooking us the past 2 years on South Carolina. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, I hope everything's well with him, of course, but for basketball standards, and I'm fine with him missing that game. Yeah. But man, I cannot wait to see Madison Square Garden. You know, always playing 2K or whatever it is. Always love playing at Madison Square Garden, and you know, you always hear great things about it, and it's going to be awesome to go in there and play. And also, it's kind of cool. Jackson Robinson's aunt was drafted by the Liberty, and so she has history of playing in Madison Square Garden and everything. So that's something Jackson Robinson shared with us. And Jacob Polachek wrote a pretty good article on that as well, just about the history of his family and playing professionally, playing in the Madison Square Garden. So that's going to be kind of a cool little thing that he gets to do.
Yeah, and it'd be cool to see Aaron Bradshaw. I mean, for all of us who got to really be close to him last year, he's a great individual. He was a nice person, never had complaints. He spent the first beginning of the season injured, fully supportive. Like, his time at Kentucky was really positive. And I think a lot of the kid, and I don't think his Kentucky season went how he thought it was going to be, but he never wavered in his positivity. I mean, he would fit right on this team in terms of that mindset. Aaron Bradshaw's a good kid. I don't know what's happened and all the stuff off the thing, but in terms of I guess I can speak for myself and my experiences with him, they've all been great. So I'm excited to catch up with him, maybe get his thoughts on the new Kentucky basketball team, and just kind of catch up with him. Maybe we'll catch him in the post game stuff.
Yeah, it'll be good to see him. Yeah, he's always kind of just that ball of energy that you're never, you know, you're always happy to be around him. He's always got jokes, and you know, he's always cracking a smile, whatever it is. So yeah, can't wait to see him, and hopefully he'll be the one Ohio State guy that I hope does well against us, as long as we still win.
Yeah. Well, guys, unless y'all have anything else left, Tan, you got anything else left, Tim?
I don't think so.
I guess we'll wrap this up. We've made it about an hour. Without Michael tonight, he'll be back. I'm sure next podcast he's back at home with his family. You know, it's almost Christmas time. And again, Michael's in like 2 states a week. He's just used to this thing anyways. One of our early podcasts, he did it from an airport. He's been all over the place. I can't even think about all the places he's been. So it's always an adventure with him. Thank you all for watching. Follow us on Cats coverage. We put all this on our Facebook and Twitter, TikTok. We're everywhere. This recording will be up on our YouTube channel. So go to our YouTube channel. Thank you for the support. And I guess we'll sign this